Chapter 17, Awaited Battle. The procession was moving along rapidly. Sar was elated to see several cavalry divisions headed for Olinthial. As he was absorbing the praises from his men as each bowed, a low rumble of mumbling crept across his throne's platform. "What is that?" he asked Azazel. Before Azazel could respond, a blast of praise for Or shot over Sar's head and shook his throne. Sar immediately swung around to see where the sound was coming from. In the distance, he could see a motley group of animals and other living things belting out a song. The song was eerily similar to the music that once filled the cosmos from Rahab. "Shut them up," Sar ordered from his perch. "I will not have praises to Or in my presence. Or is no longer in control. My kingdom has come. Seize them." With each yell, Sar's face became more distorted. His words pulsated in a chanting pattern that was deafened by the continual song. "What?" Azazel screamed while covering his ears. "That noise is awful. I will have your men contain it," Azazel responded, not sure if that answered Sar's command. Sar looked at Azazel, stunned at the effect the song had on them. He stood and stormed down the throne's steps, headed toward the noise. Azazel summoned a band of angelics to assist in the removal of this interruption. As they moved closer, the song grew louder, and the approaching party slowed as if walking against a great wind. The song now rang out from every direction, but Sar was determined to make an example out of this group that had started it. His steps were now dragging, for he could not find the strength to lift his feet. The band of angelics had moved into a V formation with Sar at the lead. Sar bent his head and shoulders down, proceeding forward. He wanted to cover his ears, for the sound was so great, but he could not move his arms against the fierce wind. Azazel had been bumped back by the stronger angelics and was far enough behind that he could hold his head upright. As Sar and the others stepped forward, Azazel watched a force field encompass the animals and then rise higher and higher above the ground like a massive balloon. Only those in front could not see it because their heads were facing downward. Suddenly, a shrill sound from the song broke out, and the V formation was flung forward into the vacant patch of earth. Azazel and the others watched the clear force field carrying the singing animals above them and then vanish. Sar sat up, dusty and aggravated. "This is Or's doing. Men, we will not be made fools of," he said as he stood to his feet and dusted off. "Join the ranks and spread the word. Or is finished. This is war." Sar's voice was heard throughout afar. Unknown to him, afar had been cleared of all praising creatures, so only his men heard the decree. Before the battle was to begin, Sar sent Enticer on a reconnaissance mission to the realm of the regions. He was assigned this mission based on his skillful trickery. Sar knew that none of his men would be able to overtake the altar as long as the serpent was there. Enticer and his band of soldiers arrived in the realm of the regions before the others approached the cosmos' edge. It was hoped that Enticer could conquer the altar, then move into Olinthial through the back way. The door to the northern region was their destination. "The doors are shut and blocked by all that fabric. What do we do now?" asked one of the soldiers. "We only have to open one," Enticer said as he pointed to the northern door. "I want to avoid any abrasive action, so move back." "Then why are we here?" The fabric whipped wildly around the region's lobby area. Many of the men were shaken by the vast amounts of moving material. "You are here to seize the altar after I get the door open and the serpent joins our ranks. This will just take a moment." Enticer waded through the fabric to the door, then quickly knocked. As he did, he motioned for the others to move out of sight. The soldiers backed out of the realm's threshold. Enticer stood there innocently, waiting for the beast or someone to come to the door. He found himself constantly looking around to ensure the whipping fabric did not hit him. No sound could be heard from behind the door, only the popping of the ends of the material were audible. He waited. Nothing happened. Enticer stretched up and peered into the small window guarding his eyes. The room was still and the altar was empty. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 4 eyes stared back at him. He could hear the breathing of the serpent and the chomping of the eagle's beak. For a moment, he forgot what he was doing and dropped below the window's glass. The soldiers that could see Enticer were confused. How was that supposed to entice him to come out? One asked. "He looks scared to me," another one said. Still another commented, "Maybe that is his plan. Look scared and it might come out and eat you." He chuckled as he spoke. He did not really believe this was Enticer's plan. Enticer instantly remembered his instructions from Sar. He crouched down low and opened one of his hands, exposing a small object the size of a marble. He cupped his hand, brought it close to his mouth, and whispered, "Illuminate." The small object lit up, producing a brilliant light. "I must keep it close to my chest," he remembered. This combination caused the object to mimic the internal light Enticer had once possessed while he was still loyal to Or. Enticer slowly stood to glare in the door's window again. This time, only one pair of eyes met his. It was the serpent's. "I need to talk to you." He could see the eagle pulling the serpent back. "This is my only shot at him. Be quick," he thought. "Your time is now," he said to the serpent. He could see the serpent loosen his grip and slowly unwind his massive form from the eagle's waist. He drew toward the door. "Your time is now," Enticer repeated. The serpent was now up against the glass trying to see who this stranger was. "What do you mean, my time is now?" a deep voice asked through the glass. "I mean you have been chosen by the Most High to stand before him." Enticer twisted the words that the serpent had once heard. "But we have not been detached yet." "Not detached yet," he thought. He must mean we have not been dispatched yet. "I am here to bring you to him. You represent the highest and most cunning creature. Where else should you be but next to him?" Enticer deliberately used vague words so to confuse the serpent. The eagle had now moved to the altar and turned his back on the serpent. The serpent was fully separated from the eagle. Enticer could hear his feet tapping from behind the door. "Look, if you do not want to come and take your place, I will tell him. I need to return before the battle begins." "Battle? The battle is here?" "I was promised that I would represent the strong man in the battle up in the heavens," the serpent said with a hint of doubt in his voice. He was now contemplating opening the door. "Nikamabed said we would detach, but the battle is already here?" he thought to himself. He glanced back at the eagle to see where he was. During the conversation, Esoavel was building up around the soldiers at the threshold, and the bulk of the fabric was now violently thrashing in the wind. The wind in the lobby area kept the gray mist at bay. "Will you come with me? I would hate to have to tell my king you said no." Click. It was like a magical sound to everyone. The eagle spun around with a screech that shook the altar. Enticer jumped in fear and excitement, and the soldiers did not know whether to retreat or charge. The serpent moved swiftly out the door. As the door slammed shut, the eagle could be seen rushing the entrance. "Let us go. You have an appointment, and he does not like to be kept waiting." The wind forcefully pushed them out of the realm of the regions. "I thought they were supposed to take over the northern region," asked Aaron. Rashawn looked up at Aaron. "Well, they were, but obviously they were pushed out. The soldiers could not have entered either. Did you notice how the winds increased between their arrival and their departure?" "Yes. Is that because of what Enticer was doing?" Aaron continued, trying to piece it together. "I would say yes to that. Enticer thinks if they have the serpent on their side, then they will have access to the altar and the regions. They chose the serpent for two reasons. One, because Sar will be able to identify with him because they share a common trait. The second is because Sar sees him as the most powerful." With that statement, a low rumble rolled across the screen. The frequency of the noise was so low that they could feel the vibrations in the soles of their feet. "Is that coming from the screen or from outside?" asked Connor. Rashawn assumed it was from the screen, but was not sure of it himself, so he did not respond. He simply returned to the text. The screen was moving away from the southern portion of the outer edge. The battleground had been set and the lines were drawn. The watchmen of the four gates simultaneously reported hostile movement in the cosmos. There were divisions of Sar's army approaching each of the Olinthial gates when the battle cry rang throughout Olinthial. The ground jolted and the foundation of every building shook. "Posts! To your posts!" the leaders of the host called. The flaming gates of Olinthial opened. Bands of angelics stood at each entrance, ready to move out. The troops were amazed to see an immense wall of Esoavel standing still at the gate's entrance, as if frozen. While the gates were open, Nicamabid's fire still burned around the flames and thresholds, not allowing any of the gray substance to pass. Shatar was posted at the northern gate, Uriel at the southern gate, Kolhengal at the eastern gate, and Negad at the western gate. On Kolhengal's order, the angelics of the 4 areas moved out into the cosmos. They looked like 4 gigantic fireballs rolling into the darkened atmosphere. They moved like comets. As they passed through the Esoavel, their fire consumed it, leaving a trail of ashes floating in the cosmos. Shatar led his men out and over the outer edge, directly above Afar. They covered the northern portion of the cosmos, a brigade deep. Negad guided his men around the massive portal. He directed them to encircle the portal's perimeter while remaining clear of the blasting Esoavel. The portal was no longer pulling inward. It was now spewing forth the gray mist at high volumes, making it difficult for the enemy to reach them. Negad's men left no part of the western portion uncovered. Uriel had been instructed to guide his troops out of the southern gate and to divide into 2 separate groups, one on each side of the gate. They were to stand completely clear of the gate's opening as directed by Kolhengal. Kolhengal led the troops of the eastern gate. He led the angelics out into the cosmos in an array of formations, as if spelling out a message of some kind. The Olinthial host was positioned. The light from the Olinthial host bounced off Sar's army's armor. The Zood shined like polished chrome against the flames of the Olinthial angelics. Snarling neighs could be heard as they moved closer, and the clanging of metal chimed through the air as weapons were toted into battle. While the Olinthial host had not seen Sar's army in its full array before, they immediately recognized them as evil. The closer Sar's army moved, the more the Olinthial host could make out their grotesque figures covered in armor bearing no marks of authority or title, for their robes had been stripped from them. Jerahab remained in the temple. He instructed the other 3 cherubim and Ophanim of their task. Ophanim, you need to expand down to the waves and lay over the cosmos, for on my order you will need to collect the enemy. Cherubim, you will move with my eagle attribute, for I am the Most High. Nicamabid appeared before Jerahab. The gates are still secure from the Esoavel. However, it has not slowed down from filling the cosmos. The Olinthial host is in place, and their fire is keeping them safe from the gray mist. Kolhengal stands waiting for your signal. 12 ranks of Sar's army could be seen lined up around the cosmos. There were 3 ranks in each portion. Kolhengal stood his ground. The 12 ranks stood theirs. Several of Sar's ranks' front lines hosted mounted horses and abirs standing erect. Each of Sar's angelics held objects in their hands. Puffs of gray mist rose from the horses and abirs' stampeding feet. The Isham and Malaks wielded weapons that they had once used as tools, along with a sundry of other recognizable objects. The moment seemed to stand still. A small patch of space separated the 2 sides. The Olinthial side stood in heaps of blackened ash, while Sar's troops appeared to be floating on clouds of Esoavel. Then the call came. Jerahab's voice exploded into the cosmos, which consequently caused Rahab's glow to dramatically increase and pulsate. Kolhengal and Nicamabid's battle cry followed with what sounded like breaking glass and the call of trumpets. Sar's army replied with a surge of energy and a maddening rush forward. Hooves stomped and vacant space carried armed soldiers toward the Olinthial host. Glimmers of light filled the air as the soldiers swung their metal weapons at the host. Commands were yelled out and lasers flashed as they tried to reach their enemy. Kolhengal had ordered the host to remain firm and stand their ground. As they watched the troops progress forward, they strengthened their stance, feet firmly planted, ready to defend blows. Kolhengal and Nicamabid produced lightning bolts. They drew them into the oncoming crowds. With every hit, an angelic went down, their bodies hovering as the Zood melted off, and then they fell toward Afar. Shatar and Uriel's men were fighting the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. The commands from Sar's soldiers had no effect on the Olinthial host, but the weapons were proving to be somewhat effective, just as Sar had predicted. While the weapons had no physical bearing on Or's angelics, they were a slight deterrent and temporarily slowed the host's drive. With each strike of metal on the ablaze angelic bodies, the weapons disintegrated. The host had not lost 1 inch of ground. They simply grew tired of the constant battle. As the members of the Olinthial host felt themselves weaken, they pulled back to the rear and the middle ranks progressed forward. Sar's army was not large enough to have a rear relief. They had about a third of the men. As they tired from the battle, they became more vulnerable to the blows of the host. Each direct hit weakened them as it knocked off pieces of their armor and melted their weapons. Broken handles were strewn across the battlefield with a myriad of other dropped objects, while weakened angelics were rendered bare and rained down on afar. Jerahab's voice set the plan of Rahab into motion. Once Kohengal and Akimabed gave their battle cry, the three voices joined together in one powerful command that shot toward the stone of fire, with Rahab as the target. When the command reached Rahab, it surrounded the stone and the surface began to crack and crumble with its presence. Massive flames shot through the cracks and holes were being created. An intense light pulsated within the immediate area that surrounded the green stone of fire. Once again, the light on afar changed and the ground began to shake. A low rumble could be heard throughout the stones of fire. Sar and Azazel turned their gaze into the heavens and were forced to shield their eyes from the sudden brightness of Rahab. "This must be an indication of our success," stated Sar. "Of course, sir. The entire cosmos is working for you." This brought forth a satisfied grin from Sar. Sar and Azazel were the only two left on afar when Enticer returned with some of his men to deliver the serpent. "I have brought you a gift," he said as he bowed. "Indeed you have," Sar responded with excitement. He then turned to the serpent. "My old friend, welcome to my kingdom." Uncertain of the entire scene, the serpent responded, "Sar, you look different. Where is Or?" Sar concentrated on the serpent's image and forced his own serpentine attributes to be highlighted. Sar's Zood reflected the serpent's image so that Sar mimicked Or's creation. "I do look different, but I am still a bearer of light, a morning star. Only now I exhibit a superior form, much like yours." Sar was trying to introduce the serpent to the Zood. "Just as the seraphim, the fiery serpents, are the highest angelic beings, we too carry this mark. I see you used your wisdom and came to me." "I was told Or wanted to see me," the serpent said. "No, I said the Most High wanted to see you," interjected Enticer. "Thank you, Enticer. You have done well. Now take your men and go to battle." "Very well, sir." Before leaving, he bowed and placed the marble-like object he had used to mimic Or's light on the last step. "I apologize for that interruption," Sar said as he returned his attention to the serpent. Azazel quickly walked down the throne steps to the serpent. He picked up the object and then escorted the serpent up to Sar. "Sir, he does reflect your glory. I see it in his eyes. He is the right choice to represent you in the heavens." "You have a place for me in the heavens?" the serpent asked. "Yes, and you will represent me in the battle as well. Your beauty and cleverness are nothing short of perfect, and with your greatness there is no need for the eagle. You are able to stand alone," Sar assured him. "I have waited so long for this moment. When can I take my place?" "The battle will be over soon, and I will be taking my place on the northern sector throne. You can help clear the heavens of the debris from the battle. Devour all you would like, and then you may pick your spot to govern." At the promise to govern his choice of spots in the heavens, the serpent committed himself to Sar, and the Esoavel consumed him. The children stared at the serpent's transformation. They witnessed his chest bulge, his skin lock into a scale formation, and his eyes draw back on his head. A shadow of Sar's image lifted off of Sar and traveled through the air and onto the serpent. The serpent stood taller than before. His tail thickened and shortened, and a bony mass developed down his spine. A surge of Esoavel rushed out of Sar as he spoke the words, "You are truly my representation." The serpent inhaled deeply as if smelling a sweet aroma for the first time. As he breathed in, the remaining light extinguished from his personage. The transformed serpent stood ready to rule the skies. "Is he a dragon?" Miklehi asked. "I swear he looks like one from a picture I have seen." "He looks like a mutant dragon snake tadpole to me," added Rachel. "Rashawn, why did Sar change when the serpent changed?" Morris posed. "They look alike now." Rashawn had been trying to watch the screen while reading and found that by doing this, he missed more than he got. He paused and studied the still image of Sar and the serpent. I agree, he does look dragonish. With each step of Sar's rebellion, his appearance becomes more distorted. The ironic thing about his transformation is that the first to rebel, Sar, was the perfect fiery serpent with all of Or's attributes, and the last one to rebel in this age is the serpent that was to represent Or in the second age. No wonder they now resemble each other. Again, they are representing a common force, but this time it is evil. So Sar will always be this creature? Asked Megan. No, we will see in the other ages that he can still show himself with the individual faces as we saw earlier, Rashawn said. Except now it will be more difficult for him to keep up the charade because even those faces have changed. The pulsating light of Rahab drew in countless angelics from Sar's army. Several left their positions while a number of the horses disregarded their riders' commands to stay. As the angelics approached the stone, the bursting flames lashed out and melted their Zood armor completely off, leaving each angelic as nothing more than a dark figure. The three cherubim and Ophanim were in place. The Ophanim had fully draped the cosmos from Olinthial to the waves. On afar, Sar, Azazel, and the serpent were not aware of their presence. The Ophanim's triangular mouths rotated in a pattern that echoed the falling angelics. Sar and the others' attention was drawn up by the brightened light when they saw the raining of dark silhouettes. Sar ducked, anticipating their dropping, but none ever landed. As Sar stared upward, he noticed that each dark silhouette disappeared after falling through the waves. They simply vanished out of thin air. "Do you see that?" Sar asked, pointing to the disappearing spots. "What is it, and where is that sound coming from?" Azazel asked in a fearful tone. A loud vacuum sound vroomed through the heavens. The sound stirred the air, and a breeze brushed across their cheeks. "I know that sound," the serpent declared. "I have heard it in the realm of the regions." "It is not Necamibed, is it?" Azazel stuttered. "No, it is the Ophanim. But why can't we see them?" In the serpent's conversion, his vision had changed, as had the other angelics. He could no longer see the dimensions that the Ophanim moved in. "You are right, it is the Ophanim. That means my fellow cherubim are nearby. They must be hiding," Sar thought out loud. Sar and the others all stood perfectly still, not sure if they were in danger. Suddenly, the noise increased and the wind picked up drastically. "They are collecting something." The serpent was now intrigued. "What are those silhouettes?"